next presentation, which will be the climate and land use change impacts on stormwater runoff in coastal Florida. Dr. Omar Abdul-Aziz is joining us from West Virginia University. And I'd like to now turn this over to you.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me. My name is Omar Abdul-Aziz. I'm an associate professor of civil and environmental engineering at West Virginia University. I started this work when I was an assistant professor at Florida International University, and I worked there during 2011 and 2015 before I moved here. So I continued my work, and this is climate and land use change impacts on stormwater runoff in coastal Florida. So mainly, I'm going to show you my results for Florida Southeast Coast Basin, which includes Port St. Lucie through Florida City. So basically the landmass over there. And this work is partially funded by the Florida Public Hurricane Loss Protection Model, which is concluded recently, and National Science Foundation. Next slide, please. Okay, that's a quick background. We all know that rainfall intensity and frequency, is increasing by the, with time, and the hypothesis is that global warming is causing that. And we also know that Florida is undergoing, ever increasing urbanization. A lot of people move in every year. So we have to, imperviousness cover is increasing. And with increasing, precipitation, sea level rise, you have also, slow elevation of groundwater. And in coastal environments, this all boils into high risk for flooding and environmental pollutions. So flooding, mainly I'm talking about today, stormwater flooding. That's the rainfall accumulation on ground due to inadequate drainage. So, and that, that brings a lot of non-point source pollution to the receiving canals, streams, and bay. So hypothesis here of this research was that climate and land cover changes would substantially increase stormwater runoff in tropical/subtropical coastal urban natural environments such as Southeast Florida. Next slide, please. Okay, here is the Florida Southeast Coast Basin. So I used EPA SWMM 5.1 stormwater management model. And the basin is pretty large, 7,117 kilometers square. And it includes, as I said, pretty much the highly populated area of Southeast Florida, as well as wherever it started from, I would say, Fort Pierce, and then all the way we go to beyond Homestead. You see that this area is mostly highly developed. However, you have some herbaceous wetland and then some cropland, and particularly on the western side of this basin. So these are the details of this model, and I assume that it's too much technical details for a lot of people here. So in brief, we divided this large basin into 333 sub-basins. We included observation from 410 groundwater stations, and we have many upstream conditions and downstream conditions as well. And we also incorporated major control structures. This area has hundreds of control structures. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the model calibration. No, before, the slide before. This is the model calibration and validation. So we have calibrated and validated this model for from 2004 to 2013 based on the availability of data. Some of the stations did not have 2004 and 5 data, so good data. So we used 2006 to 2013. So you see that we choose calibration station to represent the entire basin. So we have Miami River at spillway S26. We have C24 canal at spillway S49. So it's kind of, if you go from the top panel from the left, we are going from north to south. So, so you can see that the overall, we use Nash-Sutcliffe efficiency is basically similar to R-square coefficient of determination, a little bit different in definition, but equation is essentially the same. So we could explain 74 to 92% of the data, means observation in stream flow. And RMSE to standard deviation of observation was within the excellent model performance range, that is 0.5. So less than 0.5 is considered highly accurate. Next slide, please. So this is, we once we had the calibrated model, which I took 4 to 5 years to come up. So we first did this experiment with changing climate. We considered 20 global climate model, downscaled output. We used multivariate analog downscaling marker data set. So here we have 2050s, RCP 4.5, 2080s, RCP 4.5. So RCP is representative concentration pathways. So 4.5 is a little bit less aggressive than RCP 8.5 in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So as you see that when we studied it, is like we started, last year, we finalized this study last year. So 2020, so that thinking was that in the next 30 years, what happens? That would be obtained by studying through 2050s. What happens in the next 50 to 60 years? So that would be obtained by studying 2080s. So under only changing climate means changing rainfall, temperature, and evapotranspiration. So we have seen that spatial mean runoff increases range from 142 to 267 millimeter, means basically 14 to 27 centimeter. This is in response to mean rainfall increases, which is 17 centimeter to 40 centimeters. So you can see that 17 to 40 centimeter increase in rainfall compared to 2010, we compared it with 2010, is going to increase the runoff, in addition to ET changes, is 14 to 27 centimeter. So as you can see that, in 2050s and 2080s, for RCP 4.5 shows kind of almost similar increase. Basically, what it means that most of the increases in runoff would be achieved in the next 30 years. And beyond that, models become more uncertain. Some models predicts more increase, some model predicts less increase, and some model predicts decrease actually. So eventually we took ensemble mean, so it was a net washout beyond 2050s, a little bit increase, okay, beyond that. So that's the reason, the uncertainty in the model, but in the next 30 years, we are pretty confident that most of the models were predicting similar kind of increase. So what we have seen that around the urban center like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and those areas where would experience higher increases in runoff than the surrounding areas, which are relatively less urbanized and natural. So as I said, that beyond 2050s, 2080s, you would see that on the fourth figure on the panel, and you see that much less increase, while in fact we expected higher increase under RCP 4.5 and by 2080s. But again, the reason is the uncertainty in the model predictions for rainfall under the more aggressive scenario, RCP 8.5, and in the longer horizon. So what we found here is that 2050s RCP 4.5 is more reliable. 2080s RCP 4.5 is the next kind of reliable, and the other two are not really, should not be considered for design. Next slide, please. Now, we did this experiment while keeping the historical climate, such as rainfall, temperature, ET same. We just incorporated or forced the model by the projected changes in land cover, which we obtained from EPA dataset, land cover dataset. So that's basically what we have found is that spatial mean imperviousness increase would range from 7 to 10 percentage point. It's not percentage, it's percentage point from the 2010s. So this 7 to 10 percentage point increase overall across the basin is going to increase the runoff across the base. I mean, overall runoff, mean runoff, basically 70 to 98 millimeter, basically 7 to 10 centimeter. So it's much less than the increasing the increasing runoff due to increasing rainfall and increasing ET. So that tells us that in this area, climate is the most dominant driver of runoff. Land cover also contributes. It's like tipping point contribution, that climate change will bring it high enough, then a little bit more can create a havoc. So that kind of contribution, even though it's lower than the increase due to climate change, land use change still can make a huge difference. So again, these increases were more kind of concentrating around the urban center, and that's understandable because when people move in, nobody build a house in the middle of nowhere really. It's just the urban fringe keeps increasing. Okay, so the area keeps increasing. So that's the reason why we are seeing more increases around the urban center. So next slide, please. So then, we ran the model, by incorporating both changing climate and changing land cover projected by the data sets of global climate model and EPA land cover dataset. So we ran the model under concurrent climatic and land cover changes. And you see that runoff is projected to increase 24 centimeter to 36 or 37 centimeters. So that's a lot of water, compared to what we have. Okay, so urban centers, they are going to experience even more increases, like 32 centimeter to 50 centimeter. And the greater Miami area would experience the highest increases in runoff under all four scenarios. However, again, 2050 is the left panel, okay, the first figure. 2050 is RCP 4.5 gives you the most of the increase already, and the beyond that by 2080 is RCP 4.5 is going to increase further the runoff. But then RCP 8.5 and RCP 2050s and RCP 8.5 2080s, as I said, that because of the uncertainty in the climatic projection by 20 different global climate model, these are relatively less reliable because models disagree. Some models disagree with the others. So basically, for design purpose in the near term, in the next 30 years, we think that 2050s RCP 4.5 scenario is the right scenario for this region to design stormwater master plan, for example. And then if for designing the larger, more expensive structure, which would, which could have a design life beyond 50 years, for that 2080s RCP 4.5 should be the consideration. So next slide, please. We have also seen an interesting thing, as you see in this figure, under climatic increase, stormwater runoff under the two reliable scenarios like 2050s RCP 4.5 and 2080s RCP 4.5, stormwater runoff is going to increase only for changing climate. Is the top bar chart. You can see that around 80 to maybe 85%. And for land cover change, is going to be around 20 to 25%. But when you see, we ran the model with both climate and land cover changes, it's going to be at least 100%, and it can reach even 115 to 120%. So that means stormwater runoff is going to double in the next 30 years in this area overall. So we have also found an interesting thing that concurrent climatic and land cover changes are higher than the superimposed runoff increases under standalone increases in climate and land cover. Basically, that means that if you simply add, increasing runoff due to climate change and the increasing runoff due to land cover change, add these two, you will see that when we ran the model by forcing the model with both climate and land cover changes, that summation becomes lower than the concurrent simulation. Runoff that results from the concurrent simulation. In other words, there is synergistic effect when both climate and land cover changes together. Your runoff is going to be higher than the runoff if you just add the two, like runoff increase due to climate, runoff increase due to land cover. So we said that I already stated it, that in the near-term design, we want to use 2050's RCP 4.5 scenario. For longer-term design, we want to use 2080's RCP 4.5 scenario. Next slide, please. So what are the conclusions? This quantification of potential storm runoff increases can be beneficial for planning, design, and management of drainage infrastructure to mitigate stormwater flooding, which we call pluvial flooding. So overall, stormwater runoff could double in this area by 2050s to 2080s. Climate predominantly drives increases in stormwater runoff in urban areas more than other land uses. In urban areas more than other land uses, and also climate dominates the changes due to land use. Changes that results from land use changes. We have seen that. Now, what about sea level rise? What we have found is that sea level rise, we ran the model by perturbing the downstream boundary condition by increasing the water level at the downstream. And we added different scenarios like Florida, South, counties, they have decided 5 counties of South Florida, I believe. And then based on the IPCC projections and the US Army Corps of Engineering projections, we ran the model. What we have found that sea level rise does not necessarily increase stormwater runoff, substantially, It's mainly near the coastline where we saw difference because of the proximity to the coastal water level. So why does it happen this way? Because we expected substantial changes. The reason is sea level rise is a slower process. Stormwater runoff generation is a much faster process. So because of increasing sea level, canal water level increases. So that's the mechanism, immediate mechanism, canal water level increases, and therefore groundwater level should increase wherever it is, exchanging, groundwater and surface water. But the problem we have here is that most of our basin is highly paved. So it does not necessarily impact the infiltration rate, even though the groundwater level is getting higher. So in the shorter time scale. So that's why we didn't see the expected, we thought, hypothesized the sea level rise will increase, will increase the stormwater runoff significantly overall. So now what to do to keep the area livable? So our recommendation is that upsize the drainage system. It should involve a combination of solutions: add more wetlands, upgrade the existing sewers and canals, build new structures. Now, question is, how upsize means how much? Well, how much can be mitigated by green engineering? And the rest of that has to be conveyed by the structural solutions. So if nothing can be mitigated, if the stormwater is expected to double, our capacity has to be doubled to drain that water. Now, given the close proximity of groundwater table in this area, a little bit rain can bring the groundwater table to the surface. I should not say a little bit, it's like I have seen when I was living, and from FIU building, I saw that how close groundwater can get. Okay, a little bit digging can bring water. So my understanding is that infiltration-based green technologies such as rain garden would not be a big part of the solution here. So with that, next slide, please. With that, I will just acknowledge funding from National Science Foundation and Florida Public Hurricane Loss Projection Model, which is concluded recently. And I would like to acknowledge my student, Irfanul Haq, who did this work with me and graduated with a PhD. He is working for Michael Baker International now. And if you're more interested about this work, this is published recently in Science of the Total Environment journal. So climate and land cover change impacts on stormwater runoff in large scale coastal urban environments. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much.
Thank you greatly, Doctor. Appreciate the presentation. I'd like to open this for any questions or comments.
This is Commissioner White again from Northport. I just want to say thank you. A lot of great information here in Northport. We have constantly dealing with flooding, and now every time it rains, some of these streets that, again, I've been here for 30 years, never saw flooding before. Now that the roads are totally covered, but you explained one of the reasons why we are getting a lot more rain and a lot more intense rain, and that is exacerbated with the impervious surfaces that are coming on board. And some of our older developments, general development didn't do any elevation modifications. So some of those people are at like 10 feet above sea level. So yes, it's going to be a continual flooding problem because of course they get the complaints about why isn't Public Works doing anything about this? But you know, there's only so much that man can do, and to deal with nature. And so I thank you very much for that presentation.
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Chair, if I might add a comment.
Please go ahead, Jennifer.
So one of the reasons we wanted to bring you this information, I understand that this is not our region, but this is one of the only studies we've seen of this kind in Florida, and it's close in that it's in South Florida. And we certainly are interested, and I would like Omar to talk about, you know, what he is doing now to kind of look at Southwest Florida next. But I think that the one thing I wanted to plant a seed in everyone's mind is that, you know, what we just heard with the updating of stormwater standards is pre-development versus post-development, not making things worse than what they used to be. But what we're talking about is, you know, holding the line strategy versus looking forward and understanding that in the near future, really in 30 years, we could be facing up to potentially double the stormwater, which then factors into loading of nutrients and other pollutants into our waterways. And so if we're not upsizing in the way we build new developments to have more retention and treatment above and beyond just holding the line at today's conditions, understanding that conditions are changing, then we're going to find in 30 years that we're going to have to be retrofitting communities that are being built today. So I just wanted to put that out there because I think that factors into potentially, you know, commenting on the last item that we just heard about how do we recommend to the state to proceed. You know, I think this kind of science, this cutting edge science really supports thinking forward and looking at maybe going beyond what we were originally thinking with regards to updating those standards to just maintain or deal with current conditions, but to look at, is there a way to start building towards the future? But that was just a comment I wanted to make to kind of stimulate discussion and see if others agreed with that idea.
Jennifer, what strikes me about what you just said is, you know, the data that was just presented is hugely valuable in understanding quantity of water that could come out, and then the water quality issues of the infrastructure that's built. You know, the recommendations that were put up included wetlands and increasing the size of canals. You know, some infrastructure comes with improvement in water quality and some doesn't. You touched on that. But I guess that's something that I would highlight is as we look at needing to double infrastructure for quantity, the type of infrastructure that's built to address the water quality issues that will be so significant is a critical consideration in that future design.
Omar, do you mind talking a little bit briefly about that you are looking at doing a replication of this for the Southwest region?
Yes, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. As a part of the Florida Public Hurricane Loss Model, I also built a model for Southwest Florida. It is around 30,000 square kilometer basin, so I'm still working on it. Unfortunately, recently, it was discontinued, this project, because they focused more onto the wind at this point. Maybe at some point they will come back, I don't know. It's like, so I have a student working on this, so I'm replicating the studies, but I'm looking for resources so that I can continue and conclude it. So that's basically it. I have a working model. I just need to finalize it and publish it.
So I guess what I'm looking for as like the CHNEP liaison, staff liaison here, is to look to the partnership members and ask you, do you think this would be something of value to you if we were to try to pursue funding to replicate this model for our region?
Definitely, yes.
Yes, but the policy members, I would love to know if they think this would be a value to their municipalities.
I definitely do, for sure.
This is Debbie Carey. I think anytime you can make decisions and recommendations to code changes, that if you do it with science behind you, it makes a lot more sense. We do a lot of things in Florida with knee jerk. Let's raise the elevation of homes, and then we don't think about the fact that the houses down the street are going to now flood because ours are higher. We do need, I think we could use something like this. I mean, some of it's obvious. We live on canals, we live near the coast. We're going to experience water issues, but lately, even our big, like what was it, $3 million historic district flood project, we're still having horrible flooding again. We had 2 years where we didn't have a real problem, and now we're back to looking at what we're going to have to do to fix it. So yeah, I'm anytime we can add science to the mix, I'm for it.
And Jennifer and Omar, this is Gay Sharp with Polk County, and I do have a question. So when you say the Southwest, what is that kind of region area that you're talking about geographically?
If you give me a little bit time, I can show you the map. Okay. So, well, for that, I have to share my screen. Okay, I'm talking about, Tampa, it will include Tampa, it will include Naples, Sarasota. So, the whole region. Okay, whole region, and that's, square kilometer is around 20 to 30,000 square kilometer. So, that's the whole Southwest Florida Water Management District.
Okay. I would say that Polk County would have very much an interest also, Jennifer, if you're taking account.
Okay, thank you. And Omar, you can screen share if you want, but I think we got the picture, and our goal is, if CHNEP were involved in funding it, it would be to try to make sure that it encompassed our whole service area, which would be all 10 counties that we serve.
Definitely, it's all, I believe all 10 counties are already there, but if need be, we can add more land masses, so it's not a big deal. It will be very quick for us because the foundation of the model is done, is half done almost.
Mr. Chair, Idle if I may.
Go ahead, John.
All right, I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate.
Okay.
So if the rainfall doubles in the next 30 years, and rainfall doesn't just fall on the developed areas, it falls in the entire region. And we managed to fix the amount of nutrients we're applying to the landscape somehow through stormwater ordinances, things like that, then will we hear a solution to pollution is dilution? Because now we've doubled the rainfall, but we've limited the nutrients. So are we able to have a better net reduction in nutrients because we're adding more water to the system than we did before, than we do now? And you see where I'm coming?
Yes, yes, and I'm very familiar with that mechanism. It depends on the level of development in the area. Okay, if the development is not going to be as much, okay, in that case, yes, rainfall could increase in rainfall, although it will cause flooding, it could give dilution effect into the pollutant. So that means even though the load would be, let's say at the same level or a little bit increased level, because of the higher volume of water, it will result in lower concentration. Okay, now it's a competing mechanism. Okay, so do you have dilution dominant or more development such as lawns or even more agriculture? If that is the case, okay, which one is dominant? That's the thing. What is the ratio? Okay, so assuming that there will not be a huge increase in, let's say, pollutant because of the higher increase in rainfall and runoff, yeah, we will get some benefit because of, now that has to be quantified. we just don't know.
True, just for food for thought. Thank you, Doctor, very much.
You're very welcome.
I'd like to thank you for the presentation. Thank everybody for the discussion. I think it felt like the beginning of a discussion that needs to continue. So I appreciate the future engagement that we may need as well.
Thank you so much. You have a good day.
Thank you.